Welcome to our personal empowerment audio program, Finding Yourself in Paradise. Hi, I'm Michael Benner.
And I'm Steve Snyder. And now that you've heard last week's introduction to our Family Learning Hour, this is part one. This is about reading. And as I'm sure you've heard, reading is fundamental. Well, it's certainly fundamental to this program. We're going to teach you how to read several times faster. Actually read the way you think instead of the way you talk, with far greater comprehension and retention of the material. In the program today, we're going to talk about the nature of study, the difference between reading and study, and actually how to intake, process, and output information. Today, we're going to talk about how to become a great reader.
One of the things that slows people down when they read is they believe that they should read text the same way they look at a math problem, for example. In other words, look at one number or one equation and sit there and figure it out and then move on. That slows reading down. When you're looking at text, words on a page, you really do not want to look at a phrase or a sentence or a paragraph and study it before you move on. That would be study. What if you just read it knowing that you're comprehending it as your eyes move down the page? You're aware, you're alert, you're awake, you're really focused and really enthusiastic, and you know in a few minutes you're going to take a break and come back and study, even if you're just reading for pleasure, but that would be the time to judge the material.
So the basic idea is simple. When you read, you just read, and it doesn't really matter if you have it all figured out. It doesn't matter if you miss something. It doesn't matter if it doesn't totally make sense, because you know you're going to come back. And when you come back, you'll come back with a far greater understanding. It'll be way easier to understand it. So the first part of the program of reading something is to understand how to get your mind into this focused passion state. You close your eyes, you take a deep breath. Let's do that. Close your eyes, take a deep breath. You imagine yourself in that peaceful place. Yeah, that deep breath, that one. And now imagine yourself being a great reader. What does that mean to you? Think about all the books you've always wanted to read or always couldn't read fast enough. And now, all of a sudden, imagine you've read them all. And you love reading, and you're full of knowledge, and you're full of information, and you're full of wisdom. Imagine being a great reader. This is what we're going for. This is what we're going to create. Imagine it's true now. And then take a deep breath and bring yourself back to wide awake. We're going to change the way you think about yourself as a reader, from someone who may be thinking they're not very good or pretty good to somebody who thinks they're truly great. And you're going to read several times faster with great comprehension simply by learning how to change the way your eyes perceive the words.
Never underestimate the power of closing your eyes, relaxing, and imagining, or just pretending, if you will, that you are a great reader, a great learner, and you love to understand, and it's just so fulfilling to be a great learner. You may say, well, what difference does it make if I'm just pretending or imagining? It makes all the difference in the world. When you breathe and close your eyes, your brain changes. The kinds of chemicals that are generated change. When we turn away from the physical world by closing our eyes and dream of peace and success, we become much more open to learning. As a result of being safer, the body's not worried about danger, and all that fight or flight stuff is put off to the side. It's pacified, and now all of your attention can be focused on learning.
So learning always begins with one slow, conscious, deep breath, separating yourself from what you were doing and thinking about before and saying, okay, I'm getting into neutral here and I'm getting ready to be able to learn. One deep breath. And the secret here in changing the way you read is to do one more time what you've already done twice in your life. Change the way your eyes see the words. See, when you first started reading, very beginning, you read one letter at a time. You read the C and the A and the T, and then you realized they were cat. And then you took a leap and you went forward and you looked at all three of those letters at the same time and saw that it was the word cat, one thing. And then you learned to read syllables in a whole word, and you read catastrophe. And finally, we got to the point where we could read a whole word, catastrophe, at one time. Well, that's where we stopped, but we're going to take it to the next step, and we're going to learn how to read a group of words all at one time. More than one word, 2 big words, 3 or 4 medium-sized words, maybe even 5 little words all at the same time. We're going to train the eyes to read a third of a line at a time. The left third of the line, the middle third of the line, and the right third of the line. Left, center, and right. But the secret is we can't just say, go do that, because if you try and read that way, that's what you'll be thinking about, and you won't understand what the words mean. Instead, we're going to use our alpha state and do it in an imaginary book inside of our mind.
Steve's making a very important point. If you think about how to read while you're reading, then you're really not reading. You're going back and forth between reading and comprehending on one hand and thinking about how to read on the other. That's not reading. That's the same as the problem we already discussed, which is studying while you read, judging while you read, trying to figure it out while you read. Fine for reading math and working those problems tiny little bit at a time. But the best way to read, by far, is to break it into 2 steps, as we've described. A reading comprehension step that we're going to train the eye to do more efficiently and automatically so that you're free to comprehend without judging it or thinking about how to read.
So step 1 is going to be reading, and then after that comes thinking about what you read and what it means, and you'll go back over it and pick up what's really important to you a little bit later. But the first step here is to get our minds into a state where we can change the way our eyes see the words. We're going to read a third of a line at a time. So what we're going to do is an exercise here where we're going to create a magic book in our minds. And in that magic book, we're going to change the way our eyes read. So one more time now, it's simple. 1 deep breath, and you close your eyes, and you find yourself in paradise, in that peaceful place. And now in this place, it's going to be your privilege to create your own imaginary book. You're going to be able to use the power of your imagination to create an imaginary book that looks any way you want it to look, feels any way you want it to feel, and in fact, it can have magical powers and do anything you want it to do. My imaginary book is so beautiful. It radiates all the rainbow of colors, and every time I touch my imaginary book, I imagine that every hungry baby in the world gets fed food and books. Every hungry baby and child in the world gets fed. Children get read to by their parents, and they learn, and they eat, and they survive, and they feel, I just love my book. And that's what you have to do, too. You have to create an imaginary book that you love. So let's start with this exercise now. It could be solid gold or jewel-encrusted or ancient hand-tooled leather or some imaginary substance, but it's a regular-sized book. Make it in your mind now. Make an imaginary, beautiful book. And as you hold that book in your hand, I want you to take a few moments now and just really feel it from your heart. Feel that you love that book. Come on, more. Love that book. Ooh, yes. And now take a deep breath, one more deep breath, and bring yourself back to awake.
Do you understand that regardless of age, whether it's a student in grade school who's just beginning to learn or an older person who's read all of their lives, your attitude about learning and your attitude about reading in particular is everything. The attitude is everything. If you think you don't read well, that's why you don't read well. We got to get the cause and effect turned around. Interest and passion, as Steve is describing with the magical book and love the book, is not something that you wait for or that is done to you or happens to you or, well, I'll see if I can feel that way. You have to form an intention. This is a matter of a will to passion. We call it focused passion. And bring that intention to love the book and to make it magical with wonder and awe. Again, interest. If you think of motivation as interest, don't wait for that to come to you. You lead with that kind of passion.
So now let's close our eyes again. Take one more deep breath. Back to paradise, back to that magic book, and now hold that book, and now love that book. One more time, love that book, more. And now open it up and look inside and see 3 lines across what would have been words in a normal book, but no words in this book. Instead, 3 lines like bars, left, center, and right, left, center, and right, all the way down the page. And with your eyes actually closed, but imagining that your eyes are open, looking at this imaginary book, feeling the passion, the love for this book, we're going to actually move our eyes from the left third to the middle third to the right third. You're going to hear a snapping noise. That's my snapping as you move your eyes from the left third to the center third to the right third of the page. Get ready. Love that book, and here we go. Left, center, and right. Left, center, right. Left, center, right. Stop. Rest the eyes. And now imagine yourself being that great reader. Close the book. Feel the passion. And now take a deep breath and bring yourself back to wide awake.
I love to read. I love to learn. Few things in life are more fulfilling than learning things you're interested in. Get the order straight. The interest can precede the learning. And that's really important because how many times in school or in life do we have to do things we really don't want to do and therefore are not interested in them? You may have to take a class sometime that, oh no, I hate that subject. I don't want to do that. But it's required if you're going to move through school and get your degree. And in the work environment, all of us know situations where, oh man, I hate this part of my job. Hey, fake it till you make it. Pretend. In normal consciousness, you're just like doing a mind game. But when you relax and go into your imagination through deep relaxation and feeling really safe, boy, the mind just opens up like a sponge and soaks up that information.
We are training our minds to do 2 things here. Number 1, to love books. And number 2, to read in a new way, to teach our eyes to move to the left third of the line and then to the center third of the line and then to the right third of the line so that we see a group of words at one time instead of one word at a time. That's the secret. You see, when you read one word at a time, it's a lot of work because you have to translate each word. When you read in the house, your eyes look at the word in, and then you think, what's that mean? It means the opposite of out, or you get this feeling of inside. And then you read the word the, and you don't know what the means. Nobody knows what the means. What it means to me is proceed to the next word, the what, and then you see house. And then you get a picture of a house in your mind, but probably the outside of a house before your mind puts it all together. Oh, in the house. But if you train your eyes like we're talking about here to read the whole left third of the line, well, you'd see in the house all at once, and it would come as one idea, one picture. So it's a lot less work. So the exercise, very simple, is to learn to love books and then to read books in groups of words at a time. Now, when you read a real book or a magazine or computer screen or anything, remember, just read your regular old way. If you try to read this 1/3 of a line at a time way, this try-focus method, what's going to happen is that's what you'll be thinking about and you won't be comprehending what you're reading. The only time you actually purposely move your eyes left, center, right is when your eyes are closed in your imaginary book. But here's the good news. If you do that enough times in your mind with enough love for that book, eventually, and not very long from now at all, your eyes will automatically begin doing the left, center, right thing on every page they look at. Automatically, without thinking about it, you'll be reading groups of words at a time. And when you do that, you'll be reading the way you think instead of the way you talk. Because no matter how fast you talk, and I can be a pretty fast talker, you cannot say more than one word at a time, but you can think many.
This part of accelerated learning we call alpha learning because it's really a better way to read. Not only is it faster and more efficient, but think of his example in the house. In fact, you might even want to expand it. In the big red rustic barn. You have to wait till you get to barn before you know what is big and red and rustic that we're going into. You have to hold all of those words in your mind until you get to barn, or as Steve was saying, in the house. It'd be nice if the subject were at the beginning of the sentence, with the adjectives and modifiers following. Barn, which is rustic and big and red that we're going into, but that's just not the way the language is. It doesn't matter, though. The brain can see that picture and sometimes even hear the sound associated with it when you read this way, because as Steve just said, now you're reading at the speed of thought and mental pictures instead of subvocalizing. That's what brain researchers call the way we read. Even if we only read to ourselves, we're secretly reading out loud, even though we're not making any noise. I know people with master's degrees and PhDs who are reading these complicated articles and writing equally complex articles and still read in the house, don't you see? You're now learning a technique. Think of how cool this is, that allows your brain to assemble that into a whole thing. 3 ideas, 3 bigger pieces in the amount of time that it was taking you to read just a couple of words. It'll at least triple your reading speed, provided you do the exercises.
And, of course, that's the secret. The exercise is really simple. You close your eyes, you take a deep breath, you go to paradise, you imagine that book, you love the book. Now, that moment is the key to this whole exercise. How much passion you put into that moment. You love that book. And then you imagine the page with the trifocus. Now, you might actually see that page in your mind. You might be really good, really visual, and see what the page looks like exactly. But if you don't see the page, just pretend that you do. Just, if there were a page actually there that I was looking at, what would it look like? You don't have to see it. You just have to sort of know what it looks like, or what it would look like if you did see it. And you actually do have to move your eyes, though, from the left to the center to the right. Left, center, right, left. Then you close the book. You love the book one more time, and then you open your eyes. It's easy. That's all you do. Close your eyes, go to paradise, pull out the book, love the book, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, close the book, love the book, wake up. Parents, it's your job. Adults, it's your job to see that the children do this exercise over and over and over and over again. How many times? Well, the more times you do it, the more powerful it'll be. But here's what I recommend. Find an opportunity to get them to sit down for at least a minute, as many times as you can, to do this. Or one time for 10 minutes. But each day, find some time. Have them close their eyes, take a deep breath, go to paradise. You can do it with them. Do the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 as you love that book. And then just open your eyes, basking in the love of that book. That's all it's find the paradise, create the book, love the book, do the exercise, love the book. Do that as many times as you can, because in my experience, it takes a bunch of repetitions to make this work. How much you love the book determines how many, but certainly in the next week, if you make each other do this, kids make the parents do it, parents make if you make each other do this a bunch of times every day for a minute or even 10 or 20 seconds sometimes, the more times you do it, the faster you'll be reading and the better you'll be reading. This is powerful, powerful stuff. And just think about this. Put it this way. If you do this exercise a lot this week, from now on, an hour's worth of homework is only going to take 20 minutes.
Another tip that will apply to a lot of you, this is not calisthenics for the eye. When you go to this paradise thinking place, this alpha brainwave level, and you open your magic book and you begin to move your eyes literally behind closed lids, left, center, right, left, center, right. It's not as far to the left as you can look, and then the center, and as far to the right as you can look. There is a book a couple of feet in front of you that's only about 8 inches wide, so left, center, right is just a little bit of a movement. It's easy to do, right? And it ought to be fun. And gosh, when Steve taught me this technique years and years ago, I was doing it at red lights with my eyes open in traffic. I mean, I wouldn't close my eyes. I would just go left, center, right while I'm looking at the red light and waiting for it to turn green. Or standing in line at the supermarket, instead of reading the cover of the National Enquirer, I'd go left, center, right, left. Many times is much more effective than a lot of time. So to do this for 20 seconds or 1 minute, many times a day, increases the efficiency of it all, accelerates the learning process, and before you know it, you're going to be reading along, reading like you've always read, not thinking about how to read, and all of a sudden find yourself at the bottom of the page and go, holy cow, I think I'm doing it. Left, center, right. Yeah, I'm doing it. It happened automatically. It was so cool.
And once it happens forever. But the best part is now all the other habits you had that referred to reading the way you used to read, the one word at a time, they're all gone. They don't have anything to do with this new trifocus thing. Your brain is clean as a whistle as it comes to habits. So now we can add the habits we want, the habits of having focused concentration and remembering the things we read, and even the habit of feeling like we'll remember it best when it comes to the test. The most important habit to have, though, when you read, is that when you read, you are paying attention to what you're reading, and when your mind wanders away from what you're reading, your eyes stop. So you don't get that keep on going down to the bottom of the page and go, what did I just look at? That's not reading. When your mind is engaged with comprehending, your eyes move. When your mind goes away, and it will, it's supposed to. You have an attention span. It can't last forever. But when your mind does go away, your eyes stop moving, and you notice you've been staring at that word for a while. That's the new habit you're going to create. So the most important thing is to do this exercise over and over and over again. You close your eyes, you go to that peaceful paradise place, you create that book again in your mind, and you love that book. That one moment matters so much. And then you imagine your eyes, and you physically move your eyes, left, center, right, left, center, right, left, center, right, 10 seconds or so. Close the book, love the book, wake up. That's all you have to do. Do it a bunch of times. Do it over and over and over again. Do it as many times as you can, because the more you do it with the more passion, the better it'll work. And remember, too, if you imagine yourself being a really great reader, that'll give your mind the motivation to want to do this exercise over and over again. So we're going to talk about how to do this now, just exercise the mind, and then how to combine this with actually studying the material.
Yeah, you bet. Keep in mind now, you can also do this. In fact, it's a great idea to do it just, 20 seconds or a minute before you actually sit down to read. Now, you don't have to once it becomes automatic, but don't we all know situations or circumstances where we need to read for school or work or even pleasure? I want to get lost in a novel maybe, but my mind is just racing. And I start to read and I just can't create the focus. Well, now you know what to do. You repeat this exercise that taught you to read 3 jumps per line in the first place, that taught you to comprehend bigger bits of information, by relaxing and closing your eyes, and you're so good at it now. It's so easy and fun to create focus and interest, passion in this level of mind, that then you open your mind, and I think you'll see immediately the difference that's made. Also, it's a great idea to adjust your attitude, put a little smile on your face, and remind yourself of why it is that you're reading. And as I said a few minutes ago, even if it's chemistry or physics, something you really don't want to read, or something about work you don't like, conjure up that interest, psych up, just like you would for any sporting contest, You always want to do your best and find that attitude going in. Put a little smile on your face when you read. I learned that from Steve, too. And finally, make sure the light is coming in from behind you, over one shoulder or another, so that when it hits the page, it bounces away from you. You don't need all that extra glare and eye strain. And rest your eyes every once in a while, too.
There's a lot of wonderful habits. Sit up straight. And here's the most important physiological process you have to pay attention to, the body itself. You have to hold the book out in front of you and not look down at it, like putting it at the desk and looking down. Because when you look down at the book, as you look at the top of the page, your eyelids are half shut. And as you read down the page, your eyelids are slowly closing. You always fall asleep at the bottom of the page. If you have enough energy to turn the page and look up to the top of the next page, you're awake. What we want to do is make sure that the page is out in front of us. So we hold the book like parallel, not perpendicular, like in front of us, not down below us, so that we're looking straight out at the book. This is important. Also, it makes us sit up and it makes us breathe better, because, as you're looking down at the page and your eyes are slowly closing and your head is bowing down, your breathing gets shallower and shallower as well. So you have to get a lot of breathing. Remind yourself once in a while to take that slow, deep breath and pay attention to what you read.
It's really true. Usually, if you fall asleep while you're reading, it's when your eyes are at the bottom of a page and they just keep on going.
Right down into unconsciousness. Again. So look up, hold the book up when you read. That's an important process.
Okay, now the study parts. We've already told you, and we've even emphasized and underscored separating the judgment, considering the implications of what you're reading for a second step. Even if you're reading for pleasure, this is it. So, whether you're reading for pleasure, whether you're studying for school or to write a report at work and to comprehend as much as you can, any other situation, break it into 2 steps at least, okay? So that now that you've read for what is comfortable given your attention span, maybe it's 10 minutes, maybe it's 20 minutes, stick your finger in the book, close the book, and now we're going to go back. And after resting the eyes for a little while, and I think we should touch on that, now you get to judge it and think about it.
Now you get to study. And for some of you, it'll be 10 or 20 minutes, and some of you it might be 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and that's perfectly fine. There's no advantage to a long amount of time or a short amount of time. Each time you read for the time that your mind gives you to pay attention to it. Everyone has their own version of what's comfortable for them to pay attention, and it works. Whatever you have in your mind in terms of an attention span, that'll work. We can help change it, we can help grow it, but for now, as long as you pay attention, it works. But for those of you that have a short attention span because you don't find the information interesting, here's what you need to do. Before you read, what you need to do is you need to open the book and let your eyes just look at every page you're about to read for a second or two. Just scan over it, just to get thinking, what subject is this? What, is this is history, okay, this is U.S. history. So you get the idea, and then you close your eyes and you imagine in your mind how knowing this information will make you feel better about yourself or smarter, or will make you a lot of money one day, or will make you rich and famous or success. You get interested in this information, like I really, really want to know this, and then you read, and you'll find your attention span is quite a bit longer when you do that.
Yeah, now, if you're reading for pleasure, this is simple and sweet and fun. You get to figure out now, gee, I wonder if the butler did do it. Or what does this remind me of? Or maybe a flip. Some books have charts or maps or pictures you can flip around. You can go to the glossary and check the table of contents. Read the dust cover notes in the middle of the book, if you never check that out. You get to mess around as well. This is the playtime that frees us to do nothing but read when we read. Now, the study step is also when you would highlight, underline, make notes in the margin, or jot down notes in what we used to call a notebook, right? You, I'm sure, have your own study style, and some folks do multiple things. You may highlight and make notes in the margin and write in a notebook. But this would be the step to do it. Remember, if you do that, any of those things, while you're reading, you're not reading. You're trying to multitask. You're trying to read and study at the same time. Save it for this step.
So the idea is you get yourself prepared for what you're about to read. You look it over, you scan the material, and you get excited. You get interested, and then you read. And you read for as long as your mind is paying attention. As soon as your mind stops paying attention, you close your eyes and rest for a moment, and then you start thinking about it. This is where you think, like, what does this mean? Do I agree with this? Is this going to be on the test? Is this very important? You just think about it. You let your mind wander across what you were just reading, and then you open your eyes, and you pick up what you just read, and here's where you actually study. You go really, really fast over what you already knew. You go really, really fast over what you got the first time through. You go really, really fast over what you realize you don't need and you can forget, and you stop and carefully study what you still need to get. You only focus on the pieces that you didn't already know or got the first time through, the pieces you think are important. If you want to really remember something, it's in this step that you do it. So the first time when you're reading, it's okay if you miss something. It's okay if you're not sure about it. You'll come back. And in this step, when you see that thing you weren't sure about, you see that thing you really wanted to learn, you stop and you read it a couple times, a few times, a whole bunch of times. And you might even imagine yourself at that very moment remembering it at some future time and being so proud of yourself that you remembered this fact, this quote, this idea. See great importance in remembering this in your mind, and you will, of course, remember it with great importance in your mind. The idea is this is where you study, this is where you make judgments. In pleasure reading, this is where you try and figure out what's going on. In study reading, this is where you make sure you know what you need to know for the test.
Now, let's say you really want to seal the deal. Let's say this is real important material, and you want one more tool, one more technique. Well, consider the saying, he or she who teaches learns twice. When you tell somebody about the material as if you were tutoring them or maybe just describing what you've read and sharing with them, even if they're not all that interested. You could use your, baby brother or little sister or your young child to pretend you're explaining this material to. That is a whole nother level of understanding. You learn it again. Those who teach learn twice. How about if we say it that way? And that will really require you to understand it in a way that is more comprehensive and more inclusive.
So in the week to come, help each other remember to go often to that peaceful place, to that magic book, to love that book, to do the trifocus left, center, right exercise, to love the book and to wake up. The more times you do it, the better you'll do. Your reading will improve dramatically. Not only will you read much faster with far greater comprehension, but you'll remember it better. And in the coming episodes, we're going to talk about how to remember it best when it comes to the test.
We had the intro last week. This is part 1. There's 2, 3, and 4 to come in successive audio programs here, Finding Yourself in Paradise. This is our special little learning program, and we want you to share it with your friends as well. Tell them all about it. But keep that commitment of the family is coming together for about an hour now, once a week for 5 weeks to do these programs. Follow through and do the exercises that Steve described. It's not going to work if you don't go to work. Just stop calling it work and have some fun. Reading is not only fundamental, it's just a lot of fun to be able to soak up all that information.
Yeah, reading is so wonderful and so powerful. I'd like to finish with a little poem I wrote when I was a much younger man about the passion for reading. It goes like this. A voyage to elsewhere, a journey beyond. A feeling of oneness, a synergy bond, a universe uncovered, a galaxy explored, a varied chase through time and space, and never getting bored. To unicorns and dragons' homes where the mystery and magic dwells, to utopias and heavens and to the nether depths of hell. From a hobbit shire to a caveman's fire, to spaceships and walks on the moon. From the North Pole in December to the Amazon in June. To dinosaurs and distant shores and spirits, ghosts and ghouls. From the wisdom of the ancients to the folly of the fools. The whole universe is here for you if you only take a look, and the magic does begin each time you open up a book.
As always, be gentle, love life, and take care of each other. For Steve Snyder, this is Michael Benner.